Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below, your purchase and pricing email question line. For buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform, email me directly for pricing, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we discuss something extraordinary. Not only is this one of the first 50 tourbillon remontoirs ever built by F.P. Journe, it is one of the very first of the hand-engraved solid gold Labyrinth dial models. These are custom métier d'art timepieces built on bases of F.P. Journe Tourbillon Souverain, and prior to that, the Tourbillon Remontoir. An extraordinary timepiece made entirely by hand. It's 38 millimeters in diameter by 9.2 millimeters thick, by 44.8 millimeters lug tip to lug tip, and it has 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. As you can see, this case is unadulterated. It features swirls and some scuffs, but it has not been diminished by refinishing. We're selling this watch original. Now on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see that the timepiece wears easily, comfortably, handsomely, and compact. It's a viable unisex option, being short across the wrist, and you can see that well from this angle. And from over the top, you can see the lugs are nowhere near the edge of my wrist. It's also low, so it'll slip underneath the cuff, giving you a measure of discretion in dress attire. Now the strap is a lovely piece, as you can see. It's an F.P. Journe factory strap. Gloss olive green, large rectangular scale alligator leather. You can see that there's a monotone stitch and a folded edge on the underside. You can see round scale alligator leather. The OEM supplier of straps to F.P. Journe is Journe Rousseau of Paris, and they would have crafted this immaculately gator on both sides because it makes for a longer lasting strap. Pull tab spring bars, so you can quickly and easily remove the strap without a tool. And of course, the spring bars are curved to allow unimpeded motion of the strap, despite the fact that the lugs are drilled relatively close to the case. We have here a platinum pin buckle for quick and easy adjustments. And the timepiece, nicely made, is equipped with an older style pin buckle that features these lateral hallmarks and purity codes. You can see normally this would be underneath the bridge of the pin buckle. Here it's actually lateral against the stanchions of the buckle. Now, taking a quick look at the case, you can see it's all of high polish, handsomely executed, sharply curved, integrated lug profiles, domed bezel, domed case back, and the mid case defined by the overlapping lip of the bezel in the case back. Everything's of high polish, and we have the characteristic F.P. Journe, a double dimple knurled crown here. Now, taking a look at the dial, it is the cause célèbre of this model. That said, it's not the only part of this watch's appeal, as this is the original Tourbillon Remontoir, and you can see the dial has characteristics of a third series Tourbillon Remontoir. Despite the use of the Labyrinth dial, you can see it does have the flat Remontoir cock, and then it has the large bolts. So rounded with large bolts would have been either a Series 1 or a Series 2. Large bolts with a flat cock, that is going to be a Series 3, and small bolts with a flat Remontoir cock would be a Series 4. So we have a polished steel bezel framing a satin white stamped brass plate that gives you the hours and the minutes. We have those lovely blue tapered biomorphic Journe hands. We have a power reserve scale up at 12 o'clock with the larger digits characteristic of the third and fourth series Tourbillon Remontoir. You can also see that the power reserve works backwards like a marine chronometer, where it's important to wind the watch exactly 24 hours apart. So with a marine chronometer, you need to know how many hours since winding, not how many hours of power reserve remaining. That's why this one indicates 0 when fully wound, 0 hours since full winding. These early watches, especially the first few dozen like this, feature more distinctly handcrafted features. If you can think of what a George Daniels watch looks like, beautiful, but also beautifully imperfect. You have elements of that, especially on the tourbillon carriage and the case back. You can see that the tourbillon carriage, that was all black polished. The screw heads are black polished. All screw heads here are black polished. We have a specular finished, continuously rounded half bridge for the tourbillon cage. It is a 1-minute tourbillon, beating away at 21,600 vibrations per hour, 6 position adjusted with an overcoil hairspring. It has a free sprung architecture for precise adjustment. And then you can see on the reverse side, this is brass movement era, but then again, if you're looking at a first or second year Tourbillon Remontoir, you know it's going to be a 38 millimeter case, and it's going to be a brass caliber 1498, 14 French line in diameter. 1998, the year F.P. Journe started work on this movement, though to be fair, his first watch in this style was a prototype made in 1991. The brass caliber features the crown wheel, the ratchet wheel, the click, which is a swan's neck pocket watch-inspired unit. And then you have the remontoire d'égalité, the constant force device. This is a buffer between the barrel and the escapement. For the first 28 hours of power reserve, the energy from the remontoire, it flows from the barrel to the spring through a separate locking escapement and then into the terminal end, which is the escapement and the balance assembly of the tourbillon. The idea being for the first 28 hours, the barrel never directly drives the escapement. There's always that buffer spring meeting out equal force every second. So for the first 28 hours, you maintain constant amplitude about the balance. And you can see the balance and the tourbillon structure quite well from this angle. Now, of course, we have the Labyrinth dial, which is hand engraved, a combination of polish and chiseling. It is truly impressive, as most FP Journe dials, though made of precious metal, tend to be industrially finished. This was done by hand with a burin, and then later with a point to create the tremblage effect in between the arcs of the Labyrinth pattern. Flipped back over, you can see that there's a lot to love on this case back. First, you can see that the year of the case's manufacture is 99. Journe cases up through about mid-2005 featured a stamp on the reverse side that would explain when the case was made. That doesn't always correspond to when the watch was assembled, but I can tell you that this watch was retailed in the year 2000, so there's a very good chance this was made at the tail end of 1999 or the early period in the 2000 model year, either first or second model years for FP Journe. Now you can see the watch also includes very, very shallow engraving on the case back. This is also characteristic of the first FP Journe tourbillon watches, generally serial numbers below 100. And then you can also see that there's even more going on, as we have two different hallmarks on this case back. You can see the maker's mark of Eleanor, a company outside of Paris that made Journe's cases from his earliest pocket watches through about 2008 when he bought the company and moved it to Geneva. That's why the watch also has French and Swiss hallmarks both on the case back. And of course, the watch has the brass movement. The brass movement Journe watches were discontinued in mid-2004 for the most part. And so this would be one of the last opportunities to get so many different layered discontinued factors, from the depth of the engraving to the Eleanor case to the brass movement to the 38mm case to the tourbillon remontoire, the tourbillon remontoire third series, and of course the Labyrinth dial, of which this is one of the absolute earliest ever created. In theory, in its day, it was 30 meters water resistant, but please, please, please do not test the theory. This one is an absolute investment piece, and it could be the cornerstone of any collection. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.